Castle & Key is a revitalized distillery where we take craftsmanship and history, blend it together to make premium spirits.
What I love about this site, and the history of the facility, is that it was really the birthplace of bourbon hospitality in the 1890s. It was kind of this legacy site that was also a bastion for early tourism to the sector in our industry, and then kind of fell in disrepair through kind of the golden age of the industry in the 70s. And then was purchased by our team in 2014 in shambles, absolutely poor repair. And then we've fortunately had the ownership to be able to revitalize it and reimagine a historic distillery in a modern sense. Our team is incredibly passionate about improving our overall production quality and distillate quality. So working with Gray AES was kind of a windfall dream of being able to improve our overall operational efficiency while making our HMI programs more functional and usable for our distillery team on a daily basis.
Gray AES is a professional services company that focuses on architecture, engineering, and digital services across a wide range of industries for a wide range of customers. The relationship with Gray AES and Castle & Key started almost at the inception of when they revitalized the Old Taylor Distillery. It initially with a lot of controls and PLC upgrade work that then we were able to assist them on their digital transformation journey as we enhance their operational efficiencies through giving them greater access to data and then improve their overall HMI and SCADA applications. There's a need to modernize while maintaining the historical nature of this beautiful plant. And we needed to do that while minimizing the complexity that can sometimes come with constant refreshing and updating of those systems.
With Castle & Key, the goal was to take their existing factory talk HMI and convert it to ignition perspective. The main request was to just make it a more modern look and feel from what they had originally, and so perspective was a natural fit. They were also interested in historical data, so with their current application they just had real-time data, and so we were able to take advantage of the historian to give them a look back in the past.
You can't distill more bourbon right now to exceed your revenue targets. So the only way to meet your profit targets year over year right now is
To improve overall operational efficiency. Ignition is a package that we can deploy and give them historical data and insights to improve their operational efficiency.
The two main modules that we used were Ignition Perspective and the TAC Historian. Perspective is being used for the actual HMI software. They have iPads already that they were using, so it was a natural fit to take advantage of the Perspective app. And then we're using TAC Historian to trend any process and historical data for them. They're also using the alarm module to track alarm, history, and real-time alarms. From a high-performance HMI standpoint, we really tried to get away from all the bright reds and greens and things that they had on their old HMI and use more muted colors. And so as an example, we would use white for running instead of green, and we reserved the bright colors for alarms. We had a teal background because the operators were familiar with it from their old application, so it felt very unfamiliar until we had the teal background. And kind of makes the white stand out a little bit more too.
Well, this is accessing Ignition from my computer. It defaults to an overview of our still, and then we have the side menu for quick access to any of the screens. So for instance, if we're running our 32-inch still, the operator would select the screen and can see all usable functions to be able to monitor and to control distillation. One of my favorite functions is the trends. So I can go over and look at different aspects of the still and be able to make changes to equipment if we're seeing some really big variability on our grain. It breaks that down into multiple screens as well. So if I go into receiving a truck, it'll show the operator the entire path flow so that they can turn on all conveyors and valves, anything that they need in order to bring the truck from outside to inside of one of our silos. There's two locations that we can access alarms. I can do alarm history or current overview, and it'll showcase any alarm that has recently popped up. I could also hit this selection and it has the alarms pop up on the screen. We are a blend of automation and manual operation, and being able to have operators move throughout the floor to be able to control their processes by turning a manual valve and holding an iPad in their hand, being able to turn on a pump has been a key part of this mobile integration.
So what we're looking at here is our cook screen. This is what our cook operator is going to be looking at primarily throughout their day while they're going through that mashing process. And on this screen, we're able to see all of our critical data. They're able to move back and forth between the different systems they're going to be using. At a given point, we can immediately hop over and look at our mill and see what grain we're milling, which silo we're milling out of, and at what rate we're milling that.
So you notice how I tapped the navigation tag. We tried to put those throughout the screens, so it's just easy to jump back and forth instead of always having to go to the navigation menu to make it a little easier on the operators. What you'll notice, following the high performance standards, a couple of these numbers here have that darker background just to bring your attention to them a little bit better. Maybe the non-process critical parameters kind of blend in a little bit more.
So we can look at our steam here, for example. We can directly see with each input, see what percentage is opening and get it to our desired flow rate. And then if we close out of that, we can see this valve is starting to modulate. Even without having that menu open, we know that that valve is in operation. And it's nice with a lot of information on these screens, we can move this out of the way and I can monitor my flow rate while I'm increasing or decreasing the aperture of that valve. So when we're controlling our slide gates to drop grain down into our scale hopper to get those to weigh out our drops, so we can just do small bumps to open and close, kind of throttle that in, or we can open it all the way. Getting accurate grain weight is a very important component of making these recipes that we make. So being able to very slightly open that gate to get the weights that we want has been amazing. And then the ability to close completely just one hit is really great. One thing I've noticed just with me, navigating the system is it's very quick, very crisp. There's not a lot of latency in moving between screens. In a situation where we're trying to stay on schedule and keep things moving, being able to quickly jump back and forth and check something real quick and then jump right back is really nice.
When we see results, I think the things we're excited about is really the data being able to come from the historian, and to correlate that into our production methodology. We're already expecting a benefit from not having to shut down for software and HMI upgrades, which, every day we save is profitability back to the business.
At the beginning, operators were a little resistant just because change is difficult and it's new. However, there have been some really good features of Ignition. It's very easy to navigate and it's been well received among the team. It's fairly easy to train operators using this system because it looks very similar to our old. However, it doesn't have that Windows 98 paint look. We have a little more modern looking screens. But the functionality and the setup of our control screens were similar, and so it was pretty streamlined getting our operators trained on it.
One of the things we really enjoyed about our transition to Ignition was that we could run our previous software system in tandem as we were developing and refining Ignition. Being able to develop those in tandem, I think, made the transfer onto Ignition incredibly convenient.
Distilleries are in a unique position. They have to make decisions on a 5 to 10 year spectrum. They can't make a product today and sell it tomorrow. So that long-term thinking requires them to take into account all the different investments that they need to make. And Ignition is a very efficient and cost-effective tool for them.
We've been talking to the Castle and Key team about what they want to see next for the next iteration of the project, and they're really interested in the historical data. We're in talks with them of, what other data points we can log, how else we can take advantage of some data history so they have even more visibility into their process in the past.
Integrating an automated process to an industry that's still incredibly both scientific and art-driven. We're still very human, but the more we move towards automation, we're not trying to remove that human element from the actual tasting and enjoying of whiskey, but we're trying to imbue that into our scientific ideology.